What's up, card fighters? Ryan here from Vanguard Central, bringing you a brand new updated Prism deck profile.
Stand up, Vanguard!
For our grade 3s, we are of course running 4 copies of Prism Image Vert. She was the original break rare that came out in the Banquet of Divas booster set, and this revival that Vert got with the new Sunshine Vert Stride is amazing because there's so many combo plays that you can get off by sitting on the break ride and then going into that stride, then break ride again combo play. To help combo off with Vert, we are running 3 copies of brand new Prism Garnet. She's the latest card from the new set. I feel that Garnet was a perfect not much of a replacement, but an alternative to Labrador, because it has a very similar limit break 4 effect, whereas you call, when it attacks a Vanguard, you call 3 prisms to rearguard circle, but the only difference is that this one calls to occupied. It doesn't have to be an open rearguard circle, which is pretty neat. So it helps you get some super extra attacks on this, especially if you're just sitting on it by itself, if you're pushing maybe to make game. And it's also a different skill where it gets another skill. Instead of the 10k in crit like Labrador, it gets an ultimate break, another drive check, which actually comes in handy a lot, especially if you're pushed to high damage very early. But what really is the highlight is her second skill, where when something else is bounced to hand, you can counterblast a Prism and then choose any unit that gives plus 5,000, and it combos amazingly well with the Break Ride as well as Leona for those defensive power plays. And our backup grade 3 is one tech copy of Prism Promise Labrador. There are going to be a few games where you kind of rush them down early, I guess, or if they have the G assist or you just have an awkward hand. Sometimes Labrador is the better choice just because you know they don't have a perfect guard and you can swing with an extra crit. I feel like having it as a backup is better. The only problem I see with it, the reason why I don't want to play it over Garnet is because of Garnet's secondary skill, which I find is amazing and comes in handy a lot. And also the triple drives does help a lot if you are able to hit it. Moving on to our grade 2s, we are running 4 copies of Princess Celtic. Princess Celtic has sort of been nerfed just because of Seabreeze, so it doesn't have that powerful grade 2 aggression anymore, but it is still a great card, whereas if you get to ride at grade 2 or if it does hit later in the game, that extra draw can really set you a long way. So I feel like Celtic is still good at 4 because it's a great first ride and it's also pretty good in the late game, adds a lot of pressure. Next we got 4 copies of Admired Sparkle Spica, of course, being the best multi-attacker in Bermuda Triangle, which sets you a lot of plays in either Labrador or even Olivia. Which is great because if you have about maybe 2 to 3 counterblasts, you can get a solid 5 to 6 attacks. Even with the new clear crit, maybe if you have the counterblast for it, you can get like 6 to 7. It really depends on how efficiently you play your cards, though. And then of course we got 3 copies of Prism Promise Lumiere. Lumiere was kind of like a tough spot. There are a lot of different ones you can run in. You can either run like Amelia, but the only problem is with Amelia you have the counterblast, but the resist is also nice. There's also the new card Rosa, which you could maybe add in, but the only problem is it only works on a limit break 4 Vanguard, which makes your Labrador Stride plays and Olivia plays pretty much dead. So this is very useless at that point, but the defensive capabilities are pretty nice still. I decided to go with Lumiere simply because it can swing at 12 by itself, and giving plus 4k, which a lot of the grade 1 prisms do like to do, can make this a 16k by itself, which makes some pretty nice numbers if you combo well enough with either Garnet or even any of the grade 1s, or even the clear crit, which can call the clear grade 1 and bounce that back to hand and give an additional 4k. So there's a lot of combos you can play with Lumiere, and I think being 12 is like that magic number where the plus 4 makes it 16 is just all around great. Moving on to our grade 1s, we are running 4 copies of the Prism Duo Aria. It's going to be the regular perfect guard for Prisms. The unflips in this deck, you honestly don't need them. There are going to be some games where you don't even use any counterblast thanks to Lay It, because you're just unflipping everything every turn. And I feel like the name is way more important, considering you want those special counterblasts for your Garnets for those OTK turns, and also for early game with Princess Celtic. Next we got 4 copies of Shandy. It's going to be the stride fodder for Bermuda Triangle, of course, because this is a sort of a stride based deck. If you're not striding, the deck is going to slow down a lot. And also, of course, for the Sunshine Vert play, you want to be dropping grade 1 stride fodder rather than the grade 3 that you want to, you know, re-ride. So I feel like running 4 Strike Fighter is great, even though the name is not a Prism. It's still a great card. Next we got, of course, 4 copies of Prism Promise Layet. Layet is one of the best cards, honestly. It's like a free unflip and soul charge 1, and you give +4 to any Prism unit, and it combos really well with either Olivia even, or pretty much anything that can bounce it. What I like using too also is bouncing it with Leona, because you do get the additional 4K and the unflip, which is really good on a Garnet play, because even if you have no counterblast, you can get that counterblast back with Layet and give an additional 9,000, use Garnet's skill, and then you'll be at like a 20k base, which is pretty neat. And then next we got 2 copies of Prism Image Clear. For this build, I decided to go with Clear just for the consistency with the new Sunshine Clear, the crit trigger. And I actually really like it for its skill itself, just because it's an additional 4k that I can give off while bouncing. So I can give it to Lumiere on my attack plays to make it 16. I can give it to my Vanguard during Leona play to make my Vanguard 15. And it's all around great, especially even on an Olivia turn, as long as I have 2 grade 1s that I can bounce, so like either a Clear and a Layet on board, and then I have either a 12k or another grade 3 on the board. Then after I bounce those 2 on the first swing with Olivia, then I can give another 8k to the grade 1 in the back, call a 7k, and then make that a 26. So that 11 plus 7 and then plus 8k, that's 20. That's 26 right there. So you can make some really nice numbers with having these extra 4k powers, which is why I really like them. There was another new Prism that came out, which was Emerald. This card was like okay. I didn't really want to play it because it's only good either in your Labrador Stride turn. Actually, yeah, that's pretty much it. It's really only good in the Labrador Stride turn because it's kind of like awkward. It's only during the battle phase, and it doesn't combo timely well enough with Olivia. The only way I see it with Labrador is that you can actually commit a whole board and have a chance to bounce the whole board back to hand, which is pretty neat. But other than that, I feel like Clear is the clear advantage, basically, since you get the name and also you get that power up. Moving on to our triggers, we are running 8 crits, 4 of them, of course, being Sunshine Clear. This is probably the best crit trigger that Bermuda could have possibly gotten. I mean, at least for Prisms, because it can basically enable so much in this deck. You get the extra multi-attacks, you get pieces that you need, like a grade 3 even. You can also get the extra power-up, like I said, with the Clear grade 1. But the main part is turning Olivia into just like another attacker, because usually Olivia you can only call that 1 column, but this one, if you have it on the board also and you have the counterblast for it, you can call the other grade 3 vert into the front row, and especially if they're at 5, that's an extra attack like before the triple drive, so you get like triggers to that. It's insane because this crit just enables so much power. It gives us that extra crit Prism name, of course. That was the one thing that we really wanted, but we didn't think that we were going to get something this good. Just having this on board alone is great. Then we're running 4 draws because you do want to draw in this deck, since if you're planning to go for the vert, you want to pitch, and you do need some pieces in the deck, so I feel like 4 draw is great. And 4 heal. All of our triggers are, of course, Prisms because the name is very important. That's the reason why I decided not to go like 12 crit or 10-2. I really just wanted all the Prism names, and 8-4 is still a solid lineup. And for our starter, we are running Prism Smile Koro. I decided to go with Koro for this build, even though a lot of people don't really like her, just simply because it combos super well with Garnet and that whole vert combo break ride. What I really like about it too is that with Garnet during defensive plays, you can also activate Koro's skill then with Leona, and you get an additional bounce which you can counterblast 2 for Garnet and give itself 10,000. So that's great. And this is also aside from the grade 1 that you're bouncing with Leona's skill, which can give you an additional 4k, for example, if you bounce either Layet or Clear. So you'd be at a 25,000 Vanguard, and so bye-bye Sanctuary Guard for your big columns, because your 23 lanes won't hit me anymore. So I feel like this is pretty fun to do. That's why I want to run Koro. There's other starters you can run, such as Akari and Sapphire. Sapphire was the new one that did come out, and it's kind of poop because its timing is really weird. It's a grade 3 or greater when it's placed on Vanguard Circle. As long as it's on the board, you can choose another one of your Prism rear guards, bounce it back to your hand. It's pretty awkward. I don't like it. The other one is First Lesson Akari. Akari is a great starter, don't get me wrong, because it gets you that easy pluses. The only problem I had with it is that it wasn't a Prism, and it didn't do much for me during like combo plays, because Akari is more of like a one-time thing. Like it's best ran with like Amelia, for example, where you can put in the soul bounce Amelia, counterblast 1, draw 2. But that's like one play that is not running 2 prisms. That's like turning the Harmony deck into a prism deck, and that's not something that I want to do. Prisms have its own way of gaining advantage and depleting other people's hand, and I feel like that's what Koro does for me. And there's also the other prism starter, like Tiza, which is the one I believe that when it hits, you can bounce it back to hand. That one was nice because it kind of stops that early death if you're playing like Shadows or Kagero. But if you're playing Kagero, it's just like a bad matchup. But if you lose Koro, the thing is it doesn't really make a huge difference. But having Koro in other matchups really does set you a long way, which I really like. So that's the reason why I went with Koro instead of anyone else. Moving on to our G zone, we are running 4 copies of Princess Labrador. Princess Labrador is like pretty much a staple in any Prism deck, simply because it is free. So you just all have to unflip a copy of itself, which is it's so cheap. The advantage that you can get with this stride is just amazing, considering you can make like some 21 lanes or even 26 lanes if you're trying to play conservatively. So I feel like Labrador is a great stride because you can run it 4, and it can also be a finisher if you know they don't have enough shield. Next we are running, of course, 4 copies of School Idol Olivia. Olivia is still one of the best finishers for Bermuda Triangle, just being the fact that you can enable so many multi-attacks, you know, 5 to 7 even if you can get it off right with Spica and the clear crit. Olivia is just amazing. I prefer to run this at 4 because it's something I can do all the time and I don't have to worry about limit break. Whereas with Vert, it's kind of like there's so many requirements and there's only one really good way to have that break ride play option. Then next we got 2 copies of Prism Image Sunshine Vert. There was a lot of hype for this card. Don't get me wrong, it's an amazing card. I still love it. I love the art. But the only problem is that it's so requirement heavy, kind of. At least when I've been playtesting, because it's really only super effective when you are sitting on the Vert break ride. If you're not on Vert, the plays are very lackluster. The fact that you have to also pitch 3 before you get to ride the other 3, you're dropping 4 from your hand technically, because you have to pitch 3 from the drive check after the drive check, and then you have to ride another 3 from the hand. So that's already minus 4 cards from your hand after your drive check, which is something that it's not a big deal, because most requirements are like that anyways. Chrono Jet, for example, because you have to ditch 3, but just dropping that extra 3 in your hand kind of sucks. It's still great though. It combos well enough. I like that the fact that choosing 2 rear guards is an optional skill, because you can just save it for the break ride and then combo it with Koro, where you can bounce 3, and you can use Garnet's skill if you have the counterblast for it to counterblast 1 for each thing that you bounce and choose something on board and give it plus 15,000. So you just make a fat lane before your second triple drive, which I really love doing. That's, I feel like, is a great finishing move besides Olivia, but I feel like Olivia is just a little bit more consistent and it only costs about 1 to 2 counterblasts for an amazing play like that. And then next we got 1 copy of Air Element Seabreeze. I'm choosing to run Seabreeze not only because of Spica, but because of just unlocking Generation Break 2 for Olivia. The reason why, just in case you don't have that G-Guard, or you can just go ahead and Seabreeze them and then get the extra counterblast after their next turn and go into Olivia and then just punch them in the face. This deck doesn't really have much Generation Break units besides Spica, and the only problem is that if you really want to counterblast 2 and then use Spica's counterblast again to get, that's like 3 counterblasts. When are you going to have 3 counterblasts when they're sitting at grade 2? Unless you're playing like Sanctuary Guard. But even then, that's not a time that I would want to burn through all my CB. Moving to our G Guardians, we are playing 2 hand-in-hand Leona. I personally love hand-in-hand Leona. I feel like she's a great G Guardian. A lot of people don't think so, which is weird, because they don't like the idea of force guarding. But the problem is, at least the way I see it, is that if you're going to be bouncing like either your grade 1s for lay it or clear, then at least you're going to be making a lot of value out of it, because for both of them you do get plus 4,000. For one of them you either unflip 1, and the other one you get to Soul Blast 1. For both of them at least you do get power ups, so you can power up your Vanguard as well as get that extra 35 guard, which is like super good. I'm sorry, 25 guard. So your 25 guard on top of your 15k Vanguard is going to make a 40k shield, which is actually like a lot. That's pretty big. So I'm not sure why it's a problem to most people where they can't you know, sack their own unit, because at least you're getting some value out of it, and you get to stay at this pretty big cross ride. Next we are running 1 Nasha, just because it's an easy 20k shield that you can stop, so you can stop those 26 lanes, those 28 whatevers, pretty easily, as long as you can reveal something that you have on the board, which is not hard at all. We got 1 Metal Element Screw. Screw is there to protect you against like the Sin Buster plays, just because there are some pretty big hitters that can have some guard restriction, and I feel like Metal Element Screw does help that. The reason why it doesn't work with Leona, because you are calling from hand, which kind of sucks, but Screw is there for that reason. And then next we got 1 Dark Element Dismal. Dismal's there for those awkward matchups if you are playing against Kagero, if you really want to save your rear guards, or just stop their plays. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope you liked our brand new Prism deck profile. This took a lot of work. There's a lot of playtesting in it, and this is what I feel like is the best build, at least for my playstyle. But if you guys have any other ideas about the deck, let me know down below. It's going to help out a lot. So like I always say, guys, like our videos, comment down below if you have any questions, and subscribe for more content. Vanguard Central, out.